Donald Trump returns to the stage with a speech marked by confusion, attacks, and audience discomfort. Donald Trump has returned to the public stage, delivering speeches that, according to many observers in attendance, few people requested and even fewer seemed eager to hear. Yet, as always, he forced his presence back into the national conversation. And during this latest appearance, the sense of discomfort was not limited to his critics. Even some of his own supporters in the room appeared uneasy. In a speech meant to focus on the economy, Trump instead delivered a blend of rambling commentary, pointed attacks, awkward personal remarks, and repeated moments where he seemed to lose his train of thought. The reactions in the room ranged from hesitant applause to boos, reflecting the confusion and tension that permeated the event. A supposed economic speech that veered off course. Trump's team had promoted the event as an economic address. Yet from the outset, it was clear the speech would not stay tightly focused on policy. Trump opened by wishing the crowd a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, before revisiting a familiar claim, that he had personally restored the use of the phrase Merry Christmas in American culture after what he alleged was an effort by the radical left to suppress it. He recounted his first campaign speech in 2015, claiming he promised to bring back Christmas and insisting that his presidency made it acceptable again to say the phrase in public. The crowd applauded his retelling, though he never clarified why he believed the phrase had disappeared in the first place. He also made an unsubstantiated claim that his administration had secured the largest investment ever made in the history of any country anywhere in the world, despite not identifying what the investment involved. Trump's claims about farmers and the economy. Attempting to address economic issues, Trump turned to farmers, insisting his tariffs had made them rich and describing his decision to send them $12 billion in financial assistance as coming at no cost. He argued that the tariffs were producing hundreds of billions in revenue, which he said allowed him to support farmers directly. Yet his own remarks suggested a contradictory situation. Farmers facing difficulties selling products abroad and dealing with rising equipment costs. Trump ignored this discrepancy, insisting that only a level playing field was needed and that success was already on the horizon. Shifting topics abruptly, he declared that prices were coming down rapidly, wages were much higher, and that his administration was crushing inflation. These claims went unaccompanied by explanations or data, fitting a pattern in which Trump alternated between reassurances and exaggerations. A speech filled with attacks and personal digs. Much of the event devolved into personal attacks. Trump directed some of his harshest remarks at Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, employing mocking language, commenting on her traditional clothing, and reiterating an unproven claim that she had married her brother to obtain citizenship. His comments drew cheers, boos, and scattered laughter throughout the auditorium. He also referred to Minnesota's governor as one of the dumbest governors ever in history, as part of a monologue about what he described as a great big Minnesota scam. These aggressive segments underscored Trump's reliance on confrontation to energize his audience, even in a speech allegedly intended to focus on the economy. The Carolyn Leavitt moment, one of the night's most uncomfortable episodes. One of the most widely discussed incidents occurred when Trump invited Carolyn Leavitt to stand as he praised her. He described her as having a beautiful face and lips that don't stop, like a little machine gun, attributing her confidence on television to their shared political goals. These remarks were met with applause, but also with visible discomfort from sections of the audience. The comments felt jarringly out of place in a speech advertised as an economic address, and the tone struck many observers as inappropriate and unnecessarily personal. Confusion over names and rambles about terminology. Another moment of confusion unfolded when Trump misnamed his own chief of staff, calling her Susie Trump, before suggesting she was sometimes referred to as Susie Wilds. He then shifted into an unrelated digression about why the title chief of staff was or wasn't used, attributing changes to supposed objections from the Indians, whom he later claimed actually wanted their name used. The explanation was disjointed and unclear. The episode was reminiscent of Trump's past verbal missteps, such as the Tim Apple incident involving Apple CEO Tim Cook. This latest slip reinforced concerns among critics about his clarity and composure. Escalating attacks and a crowd caught between excitement and discomfort. Throughout the speech, the crowd's reactions were inconsistent. At times they cheered and applauded loudly, especially when Trump leveled attacks at Ilhan Omar or Minnesota leadership. At other moments, especially during his more meandering or personal remarks, parts of the audience appeared tense or unsure how to respond. Trump seemed energized by the feedback, feeding off cheers to escalate his rhetoric. He continued to question Omar's loyalty to the United States, claiming she does nothing but complain and arguing she should be removed from the country. He repeated that she came from a country with no military, no parliament, and nothing, portraying it as a place where people kill each other all the time. These claims, presented without context or evidence, were used to contrast Omar's criticism of American policy with Trump's portrayal of himself as a defender of the nation's values. A return to familiar themes: energy, windmills, and clean coal. Eventually, Trump shifted into a segment criticizing renewable energy, specifically wind power, one of his signature grievances. He praised China for having very few wind farms and relying heavily on coal, stating that China was smart for doing so. He promoted what he called America's clean, beautiful coal, attributing its renewed popularity to his own efforts, and denounced wind turbines as ugly, harmful to birds, and economically damaging. He argued that only wind farm owners benefit financially, claiming that windmills kill all our birds, and that Democrats' stance on affordability was hypocritical, a strategy built on polarization and distraction. Rather than grounding his speech in a structured economic agenda, Trump leaned heavily on themes of grievance, identity, and confrontation. He praised his audience as proud, hardworking patriots, while casting Democrats as the enemy of the working class. He portrayed criticism of America, particularly in areas like healthcare reform, as unpatriotic, even though he himself insulted entire states, communities, and elected officials. Trump framed Democrats' attempts to address affordability issues as dishonest, comparing them to Bonnie and Clyde preaching about public safety. He argued that only his movement had the correct policies, urging his supporters to view themselves as defenders of American greatness. A speech that reveals more than it explains. By the end of the event, little had been said about concrete economic policy. Instead, the speech became a showcase of Trump's characteristic speaking style, a mixture of nostalgia for his own presidency, personal attacks, exaggerated claims, moments of confusion, and dramatic pauses filled by crowd reactions. The audience, in turn, responded with a blend of applause, boos, laughter, and visible discomfort, mirroring the unpredictable tone of the speech itself. As Trump begins a tour across the country to promote what he calls his economic agenda, this event suggests that future appearances may follow the same pattern: aggressive rhetoric, little policy substance, and repeated attempts to dominate the national conversation through controversy and spectacle.